in the supply chain, according to literature, if you look at upstream supply chain, we're working very closely with suppliers. And purchasing procurement these days is a hot topic for procurement in the public sector, in a non-for-profit organization, in a profit organization enterprises. Procurement management one of those in the supply chain activities. And everybody knows transportation. There are 5 different kinds of transportation modes, by train, by rail, by truck, and by sea, and by aeroplane, and by pipeline. And demand forecasting, what happened, the problems during COVID, that demand forecasting is the high demand is a low supply, problem with the empty shelves in the supermarket, in the retailers. So that's the inventory. There are 2 types problem with inventory. And the last problem with inventory, that's what we call the high inventory level. For example, you have a huge stock, and how we trying to reduce the inventory stock in the supply chain performance. Now, that's one of the project supply chain risk and uncertainty. That's currently I'm doing project right now. It's funded by Australia Research Council linkage project that is starting in early August and finishing in 2027 early February. So this project is to mitigate the risk and uncertainty supply chain. One of the element of the recent uncertainty, one of those problem with inventory, congestion in the port, and also the unavoidable risk. And that's we use what we call the artificial intelligence and digital twins to mitigate the supply chain risk and uncertainties. Now, the measuring supply chain performance. This project actually, I developed the supply chain performance dashboard. One of those is what we call balanced scorecard many years ago in Australia, beef industry, and including activity-based costing, including the supply chain operation reference model, and those actually models already been published in 2010, 2012, and 2014. The ensuring sustainability, that's something our topic right now, the sustainability supply chain. Everybody knows the triple bottom line, the economic, the social, environment, the impact. I would like to explain a little bit more about the supply chain ESG, environment, society, governance in supply chain ESG is one of the good topic right now. And quite few top-tier journals, they have a special issue for the supply chain or ESG and the supply chain model. So if you look at supply chain manufacturing, is one of the case study for the cereal company. If you can see the cereal, we can see the upstream. We have a first tier, second tier, and a third tier, and you can see the downstream. The first tier is a grocery distributor, and the second tier is a retail grocery, and finally is a consumer, right? Now, the supply chain is not only for product, but also for the service supply chain, and also information, planning, and also cash flow. So one of the examples supply chain service is the hotel supply chain or hospitality supply chain. So you can see the upstream, first tier, second tier, and third tier. And the downstream for the service, the hotel supply chain, you can see the hotel branding. Second tier is a business and, individual leisure traveler. You can see that supply chain moving from upstream, downstream, and including the information and planning as well. So I just want to have a quickly one of video, my favorite video from KPMG. So everybody can have a look at the video presentations. Okay, so just want to share.
In a world where customer expectations abound, Few business functions have the ability to deliver more powerfully on your brand promise than your supply chain. That's why so many business leaders are looking to transform their supply chains into interconnected ecosystems that can drive innovation and growth. For many, that search leads to KPMG-powered enterprise supply chain, an outcome-driven digital transformation solution that starts with a model answer. Drawing on hundreds of leading practices and design considerations, the KPMG Target Operating Model is designed to help you achieve higher performance across 6 layers of organizational design. Pre-configured to work with your cloud platform of choice, the journey to digital transformation is mapped for you via a matrix of maturity models. Built into the platform are pre-configured process flows that can facilitate data-driven decision-making and automation. By leveraging the digital enablers within Powered Supply Chain, transformation can happen faster, smarter, and with greater certainty. And to help upskill your people for the future of supply chain management, there's access to a wide-ranging knowledge base, from leading practices, policies, and role descriptions to operational risks, reports, and controls. To help enhance your target operating model, KPMG Powered Enterprise uses an iterative delivery methodology. Through each stage, KPMG professionals work with you, helping to make sure that
if you look at one of the model, the KPMG is one of the leading the enterprises, introduce a transformation, introducing the supply chain analytics maturity model in order to make the fast and efficient for the supply chain operations. This particular is a very popular model that called the AI and digital twins, and as well as the digital transformation in supply chain. So I want to share one more, just very quick one. For those, if you know the Australia largest supermarket, that's what we call Coles supermarket. So just very quick one, maybe up to 1 minute for that video. If you can just see the video presentation for Coles supermarket in Australia.
Coles has been part of the Australian retail environment for over 100 years. Starting from a single store on Smith Street in Collingwood in 1914, we've now transformed into the nation's #1 supermarket with over 750 supermarkets, 800 liquor stores and 600 convenience stores. With a workforce of over 100,000 nationally, it's quite a big operation, as you can imagine, to move all of these products around the country. We have a distribution centre network of 25 DCs, which we have in every state with the exception of the Northern Territory, which move millions and millions of pallets every year and billions of individual items into store for sales to our customers. As you can imagine, on a business as large as Coles, we rely heavily on our business-to-business or B2B e-commerce. We use this in conjunction with our partners at GS1. We use a whole bunch of their tools, so our trade identification numbers, so all of the barcoding, etc., that you see, not only on the individual items you'll buy at store, but on the master cartons that move through our DCs on pallets, which allow us to efficiently and easily track everything moving through our system.
Okay, so I'll just give you a summary when you watch that 2 videos. You can see the supply chain for research and the digital transformation, the sustainability, interconnected ecosystem, that one of the largest supermarket Coles and one more is the Woolworths. It's one of the key example to partnership with the GS1, the global standard one in Victoria in Melbourne. And they're creating the barcoding to track and monitor inventory for each item in the supermarket, to monitor and to manage the inventory level. And of course, that particular tracking traceability to reduce the inventory cost and therefore to reduce for the inventory for the waste for the product, especially for the fresh produce, for the fruits and any kind of food and beverages. And it's helping a lot for the Coles supermarket to improve their supply chain efficiency. Now, Can I just go to my slide again? If you can see the for example, we talk about the historical supply chain. His supply chain was born in 1990s, so pretty much is 34 years old. In the 1960s, is a lot more activities. The function in supply chain is fragmented. So, for example, warehousing, distribution, transportation, purchasing, production, all of these. So the logistics, that integrated logistics, was born in 1980. So, it's 44 years old. So the integrated logistics first, and then it's the early 1990s, is philosophy and supply chain was born. The background, that supply chain sustainability. So I published a lot of papers on sustainability supply chain. The environmental aspect that has integrated together with the traditional supply chain practices, developing into the concept and of the sustainability supply chain. This is what we call as SCM. It's been for a while, start in 2008, right? And then 2011, and afterwards a lot more papers afterwards. So sustainable supply chain is grounded upon the tradition concept of supply chain management. So, that's a previous study. It's been a while. So everybody knows that sustainability is defined as the ability to utilize resources to fulfill the present demands and needs without compromising resources for the future generation. So I mentioned before the triple bottom line is 1987. So the definition, what is a sustainability supply chain, ladies and gentlemen? The definition of sustainability supply chain is the set of the managerial practices that involve the flow of information, capital, goods, services among organizations along the supply chain, considering economic, environmental, and social requirement in all stages of the chain, including product life cycle. Okay. So if you look at the supply chain, the climate change. So if you look at sustainable development goals, indeed, the supply chain is the biggest contributor to the climate change problem. According to the literature, the research back then in 3 years ago, 2021, the supply chain generates more than 60% of the global emissions. Supply chains of 8 industries accounts for 50% for the food, beverages, construction, FMCG, fashions, electronics, automotive, professional services, including freight. Supply chain holds, close to 6 times more carbon intensity than rest of the business. Why? Because, with the transportation, the Australia introduced the autonomous vehicle, what we call the electric vehicle, the government support, with the hybrid cars or, with autonomous vehicle or autonomous truck, with the electric vehicle, is back then it started in 2022, right? We talk about the research in the decarbonization, in the transportation, in the supply chain, in the logistic management, decarbonization. We want to support the sustainable development goals. That's what we call net zero. So back then in 2050, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals wants that the businesses, enterprises want to achieve the net zero initiative, right? So in Australia, a lot of research has been done in the logistics and transport industry, including the Australia mining and Australia food and beverages, plus the Australia agribusiness as well. So if you look at the ESG, I think, ladies and gentlemen, I mentioned about ESG. The company built sustainable supply chain, embedding environmental, society, and governance. The ESG, the topic in accounting and finance discipline area is going to be good topic right now until in 2025 or 2026. Now, concerning at every step of the way, they can make their supply chain operations not just a future ready, but also a powerful force for good. how the enterprises can do this, right? First, I mentioned before the net zero initiative by incorporating carbon neutral products. So the accounting scholars, ladies and gentlemen, you also be working very closely with the supply chain professional. And that's something we work together to deal with the carbon counting, right? And to help, to promote the environmental society governance ESG in the supply chain. That is production, supply chain, logistics, end-to-end supply chain. Now, the second point that I want to explain is circular economy by driving resource-efficient business model and the ecosystem. Trust in the supply chain, the ESG, because we talk about compliance. Now in Australia, maybe in Indonesia, other countries, with dealing with the ESG compliance, for example, the trustworthiness, one of the research by mitigating negative environmental society impact, right? So this particular, I just want to explain. The future research now in the supply chain sustainability supply chain project. First thing, you're looking at the relationship among stakeholders, end-to-end supply chain, the producers, manufacturer, third-party logistic providers, and including a government or competitors, and you can utilize the stakeholders theory in that project too, in terms of the supply chain, supplier relationship management. And the second opportunity for research is building the supply chain network design to promote, to deal with the environmental impact, to deal with the climate change, the uncertainty, for example, the network design for the transportation, that is supply chain infrastructure, for example. And the third is supply chain sustainability, dealing with the procurement. In the government sector, in the public sector, one of my doctoral students from Africa, his name is Peter. He has graduated his project about sustainability procurement in the public sector. There's one paper already published in Q1, which is he has done a systematic literature review, the procurement in the public sector, dealing with the sustainability procurement. And number 4 point is the supply chain technology advancement. We're dealing with the cybersecurity, information security, the agile supply chain sustainability to respond very quickly to customer changes, any kind of the stakeholders changes to response there. The agility supply chain sustainability is one particular topic. When you build up the model, you test it, empirically, the quantitative nature in a retail sector, or could be in the mining, or could be in Australia, or, kind of an agriculture product, for example. Everybody knows Toyota production system, just in time and just in case. For the Toyota production system, introduce a lean thinking to have a zero inventory to minimize inventory costs. Back then in 1980s, already done for the lean approach. But you can combine those approach with the lean and agility, supply chain sustainability, meaning that those concepts of model lean and agility, how they can improve the sustainability supply chain performance in the certain country, whether that lean and agility, it works well when they want to improve their supply chain sustainability performance. What is a BDA? BDA is a dealing with the big data. This is a supply chain analytics. These days, so many universities introduce the Bachelor of Business Analytics, Bachelor of, a Master of Business Analytics, for example. If you do finance modeling, with the accounting scholars, with the econometrics, for example, you're dealing with the big data. Supply chain, a big data to help for the decision making, right? In the improving the sustainability supply chain. Sorry, I just have this very quick one before I'm taking questions and comments in regard to my presentation, right? The future research is supply chain. So, when I did my PhD a while ago, from the University of Sydney, publishing a lot paper in the supply chain practices and performance, right? And then a few years later, sustainability in there, sustainable and supply chain, right? And we include the quality management principle into the supply chain, right? To produce high quality products, to help for the certification for, quality assurance standard with the ISO 9000, ISO 14000, ISO 55000 for the asset management. This pretty much research already been done, but you can connect with the sustainability in order to improve the sustainability supply chain framework. Then project, right? Human, which is personnel, the capability, skill, competency management to manage the sustainability supply chain, and what particular framework you can introduce this. These types of the resource-based field theory, you'll be able to adopt that, use that in terms of the supply chain, human resource management research project. So on the right-hand side, it's pretty much is about supply chain industry 5.0, 4.0. Now we are in the 5.0 facing in 2025. So we know that we have AI, machine learning, deep learning in the supply chain, digital twins, right? Internet of Things, and cyber security, supply chain or logistic information system, right? So that is list of my publication, sustainability supply chain. So everybody can look at my paper published about waste in the Journal of Cleaner Production, which is Q1, and British Food Journal is a Q1 with my colleague from Indonesia there about food waste, in hotel and food beverages managers in Indonesia. And my paper published in Asia Pacific Journal Marketing and Logistics, dealing with the COVID-19, in 2022. And yeah, so that those list of papers already available for open access, you'll be able to download and read for tonight to understand about sustainable supply chain. All right, so this is the list of my publication. You'll be able to have a look the way I just still doing a project and writing paper, right? So doing project about halal supply chain with Australia, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Back then with my doctorate student, publishing a Journal of Islamic Marketing and International Journal of Production Research, International Journal of Logistics Research and Application. Okay. So this is a paper project working very closely with University Islam Negeri in Jakarta, with the Journal of Islamic Marketing. And yes, so once again, I'm sorry. So I'm more than happy to extend a little bit more if you have any questions from the audience. So I'm so pleased to attend this conference to present about the sustainability supply chain for future research and applications. For, this is a good time for us to, the thing we can work together for research, right? Publishing together, doing research project together, apply hibah bersaing together, and this is something we can, a good opportunity for this conference. We can just building the networking, engage with the scholars, hybrid nature, online and of course through offline. Okay. Once again, thank you so much, Professor Moderator. So I just hand over to you. So again, all the best and have a wonderful conference for the rest of the day. And of course, you'll be able to learn and to connect and, to introduce yourself and to work together, to produce in high quality papers in a top tier journal. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you for your presentation. My question is simple. So based on your presentation about supply chain management, do you think that the government or the company needs the center of technology like Silicon Valley in USA? Because I think to make the supply chain management is to make the supply chain management more efficient and use the technology about to make it efficient. So I think we can make something like in the US, especially in Silicon Valley? Thank you.
Yeah, great question. So I think one of the examples, the case you can see the Silicon Valley, but we also have a similar what we can see in Australia. In particular, one the largest, we also export iron ore using types of digital twins and also the technology advancements, the industry 4.0 in Australia mining industry for the nickel and lithiums. So the project are just starting actually last year in order to examine the performance of the digital transformation of supply chain for the Australian mining industry. So currently, my research fellows start collecting data for the Australian mining as enterprises. It's one way for the survey. And then one of the group of the mining association in Australia, actually, we have a focus group, and just have a look actually in the next, maybe sometime in November. The project report is already completed. So one particular example of the supply chain digital transformation in the Australian mining industry. So one of the project currently I'm still proposing, still waiting for the result for the Hibah Bersaing, which is for the grants and the digital transformation for the Australia agribusiness. That is particularly the framework I just adopted with the theory of planned behavior. The theory of planned behavior, and then a technology acceptance model, whether or not actually the agribusiness or agriculture sectors are ready or not to utilize the technology, whether they're ready to use the AI, artificial intelligence or deep learning when they manage their operational supply chain for their businesses. So technology acceptance model is many years already, but the contextualization right now, whether the AI in a supply chain, are they ready? That's the first research question you really need to ask, okay? So it's a great question. It's what I suggest to you, you can do comparative with USA, with the Silicon Valley, and this topic is a very topical research about supply chain digitalization. So any questions? Maybe the second person. When you distribute the product, what happened, what we call congestion, port congestion. When we talk about international supply chain, you export and import, and the product actually stuck in the Tanjung Priok, for example. What happened in the, Suez Canal, what happened? That's one of the challenge problem in the supply chain, in the global supply chain. What happened in the Baltimore Bridge, when the boat actually hit the bridge and it's a bridge collapse, right? So you can see the congestion. It took nearly more than 11 or 10 hours, and it's going to be delayed, right? What happened if the product is a food, a beverages, all the perishable products, and it's going to be stuck, right? And the second challenge problem, if you talk about the global pandemic, natural disasters, when you look at this earthquake, tsunami, is unavoidable risk, right? And in Australia, we got problem with the bushfire. We got problem with the flood in Queensland, right? And it's problem, that's create problem with the fresh produce. No wonder banana is so expensive because the natural disaster, right? That's a challenge. And the second question, dealing with the activity-based costing. According to literature review, there are several performance measures in order to, improve the supply chain efficiency for any businesses. So when I wrote my dissertation back then in 2008, so the chapter 2, I wrote the activity-based costing, a life cycle assessment, supply chain operation reference model, balance scorecard introduced by Professor Kaplan Norton, all these particular, I know with the accounting scholars, when you're teaching cost accounting, you're teaching principal accounting, the activity-based costing. We talk about supply chain, you look at end-to-end activities. So the activities, you calculate the raw material costs, right? You calculate inventory costs. You calculate transportation costs, right? And you calculate the product costs or unit costs, for example. So as accountant or maybe as a financial controller, you really need to see the budgeting. You know, we talk about the supply chain. So everything dealing with the transaction, the activities is go back with the costing, right? So that's something you also can measure the supply chain costing analysis, right? The end of the day, the objective setting is to minimize supply chain costs. Supply chain costs consists of production costs, transportation costs, inventory costs. You know, those three are the biggest, right? And then the last question, when we talk about, now I forgot now the last question. So I'm getting older now. What is the last question? I think Professor Moderator can help me to remind me. What's the last question? Oh, that is
how to
transformation. Is that technology? Is that technology questions?
No, it's not. It's about how to design.
So anyone can help me. What's the last
to
question?
Design supply chain. Is it feedback? The sound is feedback. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, yeah, thank you.
The question is about...
Thank you very much. Ananta Wahyu. Very good. I think I mentioned about supply chain. Supply chain can be done in any kind of family business, micro, small, medium enterprises. In Bahasa Indonesia, we call mikro, usaha kecil dan menengah, isn't it? So you can start from the beginning, from the family business, because when you start selling something, how you get that product, you get product from suppliers, and then how you pay for them, you got account payable, paying anything, you know, what you purchase to the suppliers. And then when you sell the product, and if you don't have truck, and then you can manage the third-party logistic provider, the trucking company or the courier company can help you to drop or to deliver the product, you know, to the final consumers. So, and then you also got the account receivable, and then you receive the payment from customers. There are two types of customers, individual customers or business customers. You know, the supply chain, a lot of research have been done already in the micro, small, medium, and family businesses, right? And then the three good journal I can tell you want to publish, because one of the editor of the Journal of Small Business Management, which is Q1, you know, it's very tough to get that journal. And the other journal is a Journal of Family Businesses. And you can see a lot of some of good case studies, supply chain implemented at micro, small, medium, large enterprises, multinational corporations, you know, including non-for-profit organization as well. So again, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry I cannot stay a little bit longer, but maybe I finish my lecture so that I can go back and to join online. And again, so congratulations for East Java, Surabaya to organize this conference. Again, I'm so busy today because I just went back from Lamongan actually to run coaching clinic. So currently I'm in Lamongan and then go back to the Petra again for teaching. So it's just so busy, and then I really like coming in person, you know, to visit your university, you know, in Surabaya. Because currently I'm in Jawa Timur in Surabaya, but after 4 or 5 o'clock, I have to go back to Lamongan again in East Java, in Tanjung Kodok. So once again, thank you so much and have a wonderful day and enjoy and all the best with your research, and then good luck for everything. Thank you so much and goodbye.